Welcome to the S.O.A.P Bible Study Series from Oak Tree Community Church in South Bend, Indiana. We've spent a couple of weeks now working our way into the book of Deuteronomy. So we're about a third of the way through at this point, I guess.
Yeah, and we're making our way through it, and Deuteronomy is the second law, which is the second giving of the law, and we're starting to give the law now. So
especially this week. We've done for 11 chapters now. We've sort of been doing a lot of history and recap from Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and now we're actually getting into the second giving of the law, right?
So like you said, last week we covered a lot of ground, and the majority of the information was about the nation of Israel itself, and God basically saying over and over and over again, he's going to provide if they follow his commandments. And the big news last week was God is going to lead the nation against seven nations that are already in the land of Canaan, and they need to utterly destroy them. And God is going to lead it, and he's also going to provide food. Food from the land, because land of milk and honey. So not manna like before, but the land will produce the food.
Well, and that's sort of cool. I mean, it's really interesting because their first night in the land, when they actually moved into the land, the manna stopped. I mean, it was just like over because God has actually fulfilled his promise, brings them to the place. And like we saw last time, you're going to have wells that you didn't dig and vineyards that you didn't plant and cities you didn't build.
That have been planted, and the people left, and now you get a free year of food.
You just take over. So God didn't have to miraculously provide anymore because he miraculously, brought them into the land.
So God says, look, don't worship any other gods. And he's said this many, many times. But he also says, or my anger will erupt and there will be no rain. So now he is playing, look, I'm bringing you to this land of milk and honey. Everything is going to be great. But if you screw up, no rain, no food. And that means you're not going to be able to live here. You're going to have to move on to someplace else.
And that's exactly what happens. I mean, as we go through the prophets and everything, rain is a big deal.
But if you remain loyal, God will drive out the other nations. Nobody will resist you, and they will be in fear and in terror of you. Just scared just because of who you are, more likely just to leave. So God is giving that as a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing if you follow his commandments, and it's a curse if you don't. Now, at the end of this chapter, chapter 11, he brings into play two mountains. What's going on there?
So we'll come back to this toward the end of the book. Okay, so chapters 27, 28, 29, 30. He's going to have the people sort of split apart and stand on and around two hilly areas, mountainous areas, and call out to each other the blessings and the curses that he's going to list out. The blessings and the curses, so that everybody sees it, everybody hears it, everybody says it. I mean, he's ingraining this into their hearts and minds that nobody's going to be able to walk away with, really, I didn't hear that. I didn't know that, because he's going to do that. So it'll come back. It'll take several chapters toward the end of the book. But it comes back to the idea of the rain, these curses, and God will go through the process. First, I'm not going to send rain. I'm going to send wild animals. I'm going to send pestilence. And finally, I brought you into this land. I can take you out too. And exile becomes the final thing.
So in chapter 12, he gives rules for the new land, right? When we get in this new land, I'm just paraphrasing here, but it says destroy all places where their gods are. And that includes tearing down the pillars, the poles, cut down the images of their God. Do not worship your God like they worship their God. Like you said last week, we're talking about cannibalism, child sacrifices. None of that.
Well, and it's easy, and we still see this today. It's easy to, I can't see God. We can't hear from God. They were hearing from God. But, maybe it would help me think about God more regularly if I put a little statue on a shelf. Don't put statues on shelves, right? Because there is nothing in your brain and in my brain that can comprehend who God really is. So any statue, any idol, any whatever is going to diminish who God really is, right? And then he wants them to think of him as great as they can, not as a small little,
Right.
token.
Right. Only seek the places he chooses for your tribes. Only there do you do burnt offerings and sacrifices and other offerings. Feast there to celebrate before your God. You're getting an inheritance from God, so rejoice.
Right.
So, right, we think of God as being so strict. God's like, no, we're having a party.
Yeah.
We're rejoicing here.
Yeah,
This is the time to have fun.
there's a ton of celebration language that goes on in here. And part of that whole thing with the burnt offerings was same thing. Don't think that you can just sacrifice anything anywhere you wanted. There's a place, there's a proper way to do it.
Right.
There's the priesthood, the whole thing. So he's setting up this idea for them that worship is not about you.
Yeah.
Worship is about me. And so I want it done in a specific way.
Yeah. He talks about slaughtering the meat and eating meat and as you want to in the village, ritually pure and impure. And it's funny, whenever he's talking about slaughtering animals and eating it, there's also and throw the blood on the ground.
Yeah.
Right? Spill the blood back into the ground. Do not eat the blood.
Don't eat the blood. And that's not, see, that one's interesting because that one is not limited to the Mosaic law. Don't eat the blood goes back even before the law, before the nation of Israel. It's repeated in Acts 15 after the church has begun, where the apostles and the elders in Jerusalem tell the Gentiles, listen, don't eat blood. Okay. I know this is something that a lot of
Right.
nations still do, but as Christians, I think this is one of those things that is a timeless thing. It's not limited to the law. We don't eat blood. We don't eat the blood of animals.
Right. And then at the end of this chapter, he says, be careful, do everything I'm commanding you. And he has two things: do not add or subtract to it.
Yeah.
Right. How easy it is to add more things. Well, God said we need to do this, and now all of a sudden we're doing way more than he said, and now it's a burden.
Which is actually a great example of don't misuse the Lord's name, the third commandment. Don't build laws and put them in God's mouth as if he said them when he never said them, which is exactly what Jesus fought against with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the religious leaders. Well, God said this, and so we're going to build safeguards in.
Right.
But that's not part of the law. That's your tradition.
And all of a sudden, right.
Yeah, all of a sudden it becomes law.
Yeah. God continues to talk about only following him, and he gives an example, and it's say a prophet or a teller of dreams shows you a sign of wonder, and they say, let's go follow this other god. Don't go. Could be that God is testing you, but only follow God, and that prophet must be put to death.
Yeah. I find it interesting that God does not discount that false prophets could do miracles.
Right.
If a false prophet comes by and does a miracle, don't follow him. He didn't say that they can't do miracles.
Right.
What that means is that God's not doing the miracle through him. We have to remember that God's not the only one who can do miracles. Just because we see a miracle does not mean that God is at work.
Yeah,
and it's a great reminder.
Yeah. Also says the same goes if it's a family member. If a family member tries to get you to follow other gods, they must die. And then he even takes it to a level of a city. If a city starts to follow another god, you must go and slaughter that city and all their livestock. Now, you think you get to take the plunder? Nope. Everything's got to be burned in the middle of the city, and that city must not be rebuilt.
Just like the nations that they're
going to invade.
They're going to be kicking out or destroying in the land. God doesn't want any of that anywhere, no matter who does it. He doesn't want it in his land.
Right. Chapter 14, do not cut yourself or shave your head bald for the sake of the dead. You are the chosen people. He lists a number of animals that may be eaten, so we're going to cover the. No, we are not going to cover these.
Here's
Right,
the
there's a
list.
list of animals,
Yeah.
which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
And some are from the water, some are from the sky. These are safe. These aren't safe. And we need, and we, the people of the time, needed to be careful about what was given to them and what not was given to them.
Yeah, and again, we're not bound to this law. There are some people who think, well, if God gave it to them, then there must be a reason behind it, and so I'm going to follow that. Okay, that's fine. They can do that. They just can't say that God has commanded that to people today or to anyone. This was specifically for the nation at that time to separate them from the people who they would be living around, right? There will be people around them that's still there, still in the land that they didn't kill and decided not to move out. So how do we keep ourselves distinct? We have to look, we have to act, we have to, talk distinctly because we are distinct people.
He said this a couple times, but they also need to tithe, and the tithing needs to happen in a specific place, and which generally means that people have to travel, and sometimes it's a burden to travel with your tithe.
Yeah.
So instead, you can sell your tithe, you can take your money, and then when you get to the designated place, you can use that money to buy back
the animal for the sacrifice, or the bread,
or
whatever.
whatever, and then that's your tithe, and that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
To do.
So that is exactly the basis for when Jesus goes into the temple and there's these money changers and they're selling animals and everything. And sometimes we read that in the New Testament like, oh, how could they possibly be doing that? God actually set up the structure here. If I'm coming in from 1,000 miles away, I'm not bringing a lamb that could get damaged, then I have to buy a new one anyway.
Right.
So there had to be a structure for that. So it wasn't the fact that they were doing it that Jesus was upset about. It was how they were doing it, maybe where exactly they were doing it, why, So again, we have
It'd
a
be easy
basis
to gouge
right here.
too,
Oh
from
yeah,
a money standpoint.
Absolutely. Oh well, the exchange rate today is.
Anytime you travel that foreign country, it's not exchange.
Always have to check the exchange rates. And
should have been here last week.
I think that's really more of what Jesus was upset about than the actual exchanging and the buying and the selling, because here God said that it's perfectly legitimate to do it that way.
We end this week with God saying that you must help the Levites. So every 3 years, there's a tithe of produce that is brought and is put in a store, and then the Levites use that as needed. And that becomes their food then. Yeah.
So the tithe is really interesting because every year there is a tithe. Every third year, there's an additional tithe on top of that, and
specifically of produce.
Yeah, specifically to help, and that's where you get to like Malachi chapter 3. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. What storehouse? The storehouse where the produce goes, so that the Levites can eat this year, right? Because we were talking last time that they don't get tribal land
they're not making their own food
So this idea of the tithe was not just 10% of my paycheck. Well, their paycheck happened at the harvest, right? So, and then every third year there was a double tithe actually that was required. It was really more like a tax is really the way the tithe was.
Right.
So
that ends us for this week. We're moving along.
We are moving along. We're more than a third of the way through now. And we're starting to see, this stuff really makes sense. It's not like the arbitrary stuff that God is just pulling out of somewhere. I'm going to throw a new rule at you. There's a lot of stuff that makes a lot of sense for them as he's trying to set up this nation, right? But that doesn't mean that it's always easy to understand. So as you have questions or things that you say, could you explain that a little bit more? Send it in. We love to be able to do that for you. Make sure that you subscribe and follow and share other things that you're seeing that we don't talk about. We love to hear that as well. Share this with somebody that you think would find this study helpful, and we'll pick up here next time when we come back.
See you then, everybody.